Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the Rapido train's recent release of the H1b 464 Canadian Pacific Empress Steve? It's pretty late at night. Steam locomotive. This locomotive has recently been through North America, went from Canada, the US, down to Mexico and back. So that was just a few months ago. Let's see what you get in the box on this locomotive starting right now. Now it's rare I unbox a locomotive from its shipping packaging, but that is how this actually comes. So it was in an outer container as well. Outer box from my dealer, which was Train World, but here this cardboard box is sort of the inner box. Now, one thing that's hanging out is another sleeve that kind of got stuck in the box, just a white sleeve there with the same label as the box. And there you have 2816. Rapido sure knows how to get you with presentation. They do a great job with that. This box looks like it's a wooden box, kind of like their Amtrak Day 1 locomotive, and it is. It's got a nice 2816 logo there on the top. This is definitely something that is going to really wow collectors, in my opinion. But let's go ahead and open the latch, which opens the box. Got soft foam. We have a few manuals and things going on here. So there's this operation side. It's French and English, and some stickers in the manual's multiple pages. Before it flips over, it's actually over 20 pages of information, 21, 22 maybe, and then it flips over to the French side. There's also a flyer in here talking about these models, and you can order deluxe sleepers in Canadian Pacific and Canadian Pacific Dome Lounge car, so you don't have to run this solo. Now, I did find some older Canadian Pacific cars I ordered for this that looks like they're not going to be in time for the review and run by, but we will see, because I'm going to be filming this over a couple days. There's exploded parts diagram, and then the locomotive itself is in here, along with a tool, I think, for traction tire, and another wheel set without traction tires. So the locomotive pops out. Don't you love smelling a new model? When I was a kid, I used to love smelling the box off of a train set, but it just has a certain smell to it sometimes. And so the model's out of the box now. We can focus in on it, so I will get this unboxed for you. Alright, last part of our unboxing here. I'm just going to give this a tug and get the tender out. So it's wrapped pretty good in plastic, and it has a female connection there to connect to the locomotive. And the locomotive will slide out of its blister packaging same way. Foam inserts going on there. It's also wrapped tightly in plastic, so we'll set that aside and get that unwrapped as well, very carefully. So there's some delicate parts on here. And there is your 2816. Alright, here we have the loco and behind it the tender. We're going to start up at the nose here to show some unique features, such as right next to the smokestack is a second whistle. There is an umberboard above the smoke box door. Smoke box door has a headlight on it that's LED in this case. 2816 on the headlight is hanging off as just a plaque similar to what you see on the box front. 2 ditch lights. I think this might be my first steam locomotive with ditch lights that are LED powered on this model. Above the coupler cut bar and the pilot, you've got metal couplers with magnetic glad hands. You've got a air brake hose, airline hose with silver tipped ends, and the pilot itself. Several little sections there. So they used to call them cow catchers. I believe this is like a superheater. I'm still learning steam terminology since most of my steam's just modern excursion. But guess what? This is modern excursion, so I guess I better study up. As we zoom in closer, you can see more detail like rivets, builder's plates. You can see the side rod detail, the sand and boiler domes up top, and some of the plumbing for the steam. You also see the safety pop-off valves back here. There's a bell mounted there on the side of the boiler jacket. There's also another whistle, I believe, in that little sleeve area there. 2 dynamos, just like on the Excursion version of 2816 here. Looking down at the drivers, you can see the pistons, side rods are painted in some areas, which you don't see very often at all. The eccentric crank isn't, but the side rods are. You've got your traction tires or drivers that are painted. You have some other plumbing and valves. I forget what these things specifically do. But back here in this firebox area, I mean, you've got trailing trucks, blow down plumbing. You've got the Canadian Pacific beaver and logo there on the cab, and now we're past Infinity Focus, but we've also got cab roof detail as well. That includes these fixed, I believe, vents. Yep, fixed. And there's also a lot of rivet detail going along the cab roof. So now that we're back in the firebox area, the cab is enclosed, but you see the male connection to the female connection on the tender, where that will plug up right there. So there is no drawbar needed. Once that's plugged up, you're good to go, I believe. I don't see any drawbar. So that's pretty nice. And we're going to go around here. We'll move this tender to the other side and do that in a moment, but got the CP logo on this side as well. Got like a little exhaust stovepipe type thing back here. I believe that's what that is. Back to the other side of the firebox, you've got the trailing trucks. Obviously a handrail for crew access to walk along this thin walkway. Another view of the dynamo, boiler dome, sanding dome, safety pop-off valve area. And we're back up front, where you can see the smokestack, number boards, builder's plates, throttle lever there. And that kind of gives you a 360. Now we're off to the tender. You can see where the pins connect. You just plug and play, and it's got a little guide rod, makes it pretty easy. As you see along the side there, there's a little groove where you can guide that right in. You've got your tender trucks, rivet detail, Canadian Pacific on the side. This is what would be the coal or oil bunker. I believe in this case it's oil fed. You've got water hatches back here. And you've got your crew access ladder, rear light, rear coupler. So that's going to have your cab number 2816, some gallon capacity information on it. I'm going to move the locomotive to the side just a little bit so you can see a little better on that side, that rivet detail. And we'll move it entirely out of the way so you can see the other side of the tender. So there is the other side of the tender. So that's about it for this 360. I know things aren't perfectly level. I've got some kind of situational stuff where the camera's got to be off and at an angle. So let's get this on some solid track so you can see it in action. Here's the weight of the locomotive by itself, 428 grams. Add the tender, 539. It's 1 pound 3 ounces. So 19 total ounces. Again, 539 grams. One thing we didn't mention while we're here, and a little bit better than we were on that 360 table, is you have adjustable windows as well. Alright, so powering on the locomotive, which is equipped with ESU LOKSound. You don't get the typical sound set. F8 does not start up. It's the chuff sounds, which kind of brings the boiler and steam sounds to life. Got F0, which is your dynamo, which is a really kind of hard to hear but high-pitched whine. So you can hear it turn off with the headlight. So that's tied to F0 and the headlight, which is proper for steam locomotives because the dynamo basically powers any electrical accessory on the locomotive, including the headlights. You got one for bell, two's whistle, which according to the videos I've listened to sounds a lot like the whistle. Three's coupler clink. Four is coast mode, which I'll go into basically without actually doing it. So with coast mode, the locomotive is simulating the engineer closing the throttle either to slow down or when going down grade. So pressing F4 will disable the throttle and drop the sound volume down to a drift. You'll hear the rod clank. You can use the throttle to adjust the chuff level to where you want. Pressing F4 again will return to regular motion or operation. So that's 4. 5 is the ditch. I'm sorry, 5 is coal shoveling with fire flicker, which we'll take a look at in the dark. 6 is the ditch lights that you can see there, like I mentioned earlier. First locomotive I've seen with ditch lights. 7 dims the headlights. Rule 17 lighting. 8 is chuff sounds, like we already mentioned. It brings the coal sounds to life. So I can turn that off. It turns really all the sounds off. F9 is heavy load mode. So just to explain that, heavy load allows you to adjust the steam cutoff valve at any speed, allowing for fierce full chuff or drifting with snifters and rod clanks. Heavy load can also act as an offset, allowing speed adjustments when engaged if desired. Pressing F9 again returns it to normal operation. So that's how F9 works. 10's independent brake. 11's class lights. Let's go ahead and hit that. And here are your class lights. Manual cylinder cocks. Hitting that again is going to turn that off. 13's cab light, 14's number boards. Let's see if that... It's actually Doppler whistle, but it turned it did turn the number board off and back on. But 15's Doppler whistle, I did not get those mixed up. I don't know if it was just previously activated and it reactivated when I turned off that number board light. 16's injector. '18's ground lights. Again, we'll go over the lighting in a darker segment. 19 blowdown. '20 is safety valve. '21's air pump slow. '22's headlight without dynamo, so it's just going to engage the headlight and the dynamo won't be on. That's because electric lights on a steam oven are driven by the dynamo with a steady whine of escaping steam spins a turbine generator. This can be annoying in a small layout room, so they gave you the option to turn it off. 24's blower. '25's oil burner blower. '26 is short whistles. '27's air pump fast. And '28 is auto brake set release. So there goes all 28 functions. And 28 didn't seem to make any sounds, but I don't know. A lot of functions to kind of dive through and play with. Let's go ahead and see how this operates in slow speed situations with our AccuTrack 2 speedometer. Just a reminder, this locomotive is HO scale, obviously, and the speedometer is set to HO scale. Even though it's blinking down there in kilometers per hour, it is set to miles per hour. That's just a status light. I am noticing quite a bit of lurch. We'll look at that in a moment on speed step 1, but the purpose of this testing is to show you slow speed control and to let you see what the speed is at step 1. So now that that's registered as 0.9 scale miles per hour, which is pretty much on the dot, I'll let you see that slow speed operation and the lurch that I was talking about on step 1. We'll see when it smooths out. That's part of my reviews. 2, 3, 4, getting a little better. 5, we'll zoom in so you can see. 6, 7, up, and we've got our coupler pilot stuck. This whole pilot is dragging on my intersection here. I have to adjust that. So I would say we're smoothed out at about 9 speed steps, 8 speed steps from the lurch. And I'll show you the rear light real quick. Here's your brake squeal. We're at 11 speed steps coming back to kind of our viewing point here. And I'll slow it back down. Seems like 7 and 8 speed steps out of 128 on my NCE Pro Cab is the sweet spot for getting all the lurching out. Now, some manufacturers will quote-unquote cheat and just make a higher speed step. You can control that in configuration variables through start voltage. So really, I'm not necessarily faulting them on that. They're trying to aim for 1 scale mile per hour, but that is your kind of viewpoint on whether you want, if you think it's a huge deal that below a few scale miles per hour there's some lurching. As you can see, pull test gauge is zeroed out. We're going to go ahead and give it a tug here with this locomotive. Looks like we're kind of peaking out at 3, which is about 45 freight cars. It's really kind of all over the place, but that's the peak. So I would call this, you know, easily able to pull 12 or so passenger cars in your passenger fleet. I had ordered some passenger cars from a friend, but those are not in yet, so we won't be able to kind of have a run by other than this locomotive. But here's a quick view of the roof if you want. But yeah, about 40 to 45 freight cars is what you're looking at. And as far as passenger cars, it's going to probably be able to pull any passenger consist you want. Alright, it's nighttime ops, if you will. As you can see, we're going to cover some lighting so that you're aware of what lighting features this has. And as I mentioned before, we've got class lights, ditch lights, and headlights up front. On the classification lights, again, that's going to be F11. If I hit that, it's going to turn it off. If I hit it again, it's going to change colors. If I hit it again, it's going to turn it off. Hit it again, it's going to change colors through 3 different sequences of color. So there you have it. I believe it's red, green, and white, but I'm colorblind, so it could very well be green and white, and I have no idea. So looking like maybe it is just green and white. But those are your class lights, your headlight with the dynamos on F0, your ditch lights are on F6, as I mentioned before. You can turn those on and off. Those do not flash with your whistle. And I checked the prototype videos to make sure that was the case, and that is the case. So that's correct. They programmed it correctly. We also have your number board light on F14. It's on now. Turn it off so you can just see where it is. It's easy to locate. It's a triangular number board light in between your class lights. For the cab area, you have ground effect lights. Those are just ground lights, I should say. Those are on F18. So I'm going to press that, and that powers those off. As you can see, back on. I think this lighting is really spot on these, but we're not done yet. We also have the cab light, which is on F13. There's your cab light. There is a peek into the boiler backhead, which is detailed with your cab light on. So hopefully you get a good view of that. Your rear light is activated by going into reverse. So there's your rear light. You have the Rapido HO scale H1b 464 steam locomotive, the Canadian Pacific Empress number 2816. That's a mouthful, but it's a Rapido locomotive. It features their MoPower DCC pack. It's like a power pack for track interruption. It is a pretty nice locomotive. Now, the only issues I encountered was a really low pilot, which I could probably kind of work on. I haven't had any issues at this grade crossing, but this low pilot did snag along with the magnetic glad hand on the coupler, which is easy to address. At least the magnetic glad hand on the coupler is. Also, pulling power for people that are wanting freight trains out of these. You're only going to be able to pull maybe 40-50 cars, maybe 60 if you're really up there, but passenger cars, which is what this specific locomotive was meant to pull in this situation with this number and basically the prototype, you're going to have no problems with that. So sounds really good. Took a little bit to navigate the sound. Used to F8 being start up and having like the steam sounds and everything come on at once, and it's all individualized with the dynamo and everything else. So not a problem there, just takes some getting used to. And really cool lighting features. First locomotive I think I've reviewed with ditch lights, and the cab light, ground effect lights, and things like that are a nice touch as well. And maybe the first steam locomotive I've reviewed with ground effect lights. And then you've got your separately controlled number boards and your class lights that I'm pretty sure are just green and white, but again, colorblind, and nobody's here to help me at the moment to tell me, so I think it's just green and white though. With that said, we'll leave you with a run-by of just the locomotive because the passenger cars haven't arrived. Maybe I can pull a California Zephyr cars or something else just to give you an idea for a few seconds before I cut the video out on the run-by, but we'll see you next time right here on the channel. Take care.
Many of the products you see in this video are available at trainworld.com. Since 1968, this family-owned business has been serving the needs of the modeling community with 2 New York brick-and-mortar store locations in Brooklyn and Long Island, plus their vast array of online items. Shop 24/7 at trainworld.com.